Serious, male prostitutes of Reddit. How did you end up in that profession, and how is it different from female prostitutes?
I'm not a prostitute, but I am a male massage therapist who provides happy endings. Throwaway, obviously. I got into massage therapy when I was in college. I took some classes and got my license. I dropped out of college and I worked for a clinic for a while I did some side work on my own, mainly doing outcalls to people's homes and hotels. I learned quickly what most of these people were looking for. And I also learned how much more money I could make providing that. I have done it for nearly 20 years now. I work only about 10 to 15 hours a week. I provide these services to men and women. I do not do any intercourse. Occasionally, depending on the person, I will let them suck me off. And I've provided oral to a select few, both men and women. But I am picky when it comes to that. But human touch is important, and a lot of my clients are touch-starved. And it's not just single people. The majority of my clients are married men and women who have no intimacy in their marriage. I'm getting older now, and if you told me I'd still be doing this nearly 20 years later, I'd have scoffed. But I'm still in good shape, and I don't know how at this point to even do a real job. I don't think I'd function very well in a normal working environment. Plus, working full-time 40 hours a week sounds miserable and insane. Sometimes I get tired of doing it, and I take some time off. I am a good therapist though, regardless of the happy endings. I am trained in neuromuscular massage and Thai massage and also have a legit clientele that I only do clinical work on. That helps break it up. I do have periodic episodes of depression and problems with self-worth sometimes, though.
My ex, who has since passed, so I'm sure he won't care if I share, fell into escorting after dating a dominatrix. He would then drive her and others around as kind of security. Some of the doms asked if he would be interested, so he started taking some older women out as an escort and going home with them. He had a woman in another state that would fly him out whenever her husband was out of town. It was almost entirely all older married women that kind of referred their friends to him.
Was a male escort for a number of years as my side gig. Per personal preference, I strictly only did anything with women. This is why it was only able to remain a side gig, lol. Demand would ebb and flow. Sometimes nothing for nearly a month, sometimes 3 gigs in a week. 80% of the time it was husbands who wanted to give their wives a MMF threesome. Sometimes this was so that their wives would become comfortable with them next hiring a female escort for a FFM threesome. Occasionally I was asked to source a friend for a MFFM foursome. I would just go online and hire a female escort. 15% of the time it was single women, usually around middle age. Recently divorced was common. Unlike the couples who were essentially paying me so that there was a guarantee of no emotional connection, the single ladies almost always wanted the simulation of a relationship. And, unlike the couples, they would hire me again and again and again. This was where most of my money came from. I had one woman who hired me nearly once every week for a year. She only stopped when it became all too apparent to her that our relationship wasn't real. 5% of the time it was the rich and busy type of woman, doctors, lawyers, executives, etc., for whom dating just took too much time. These were the best for me as they were usually the hottest, but because it was just sex for them, I didn't get the repeat business I would get from those who wanted to pretend they were in a relationship. As for pay, I would charge $150 per hour, which is pretty much nothing compared to what female escorts get. But, you know, the laws of supply and demand and all.
In my late teens, early 20s, I was a male prostitute. I was sort of forced out of my family home for being gay and had to stand on my own feet before I was ready for it financially. Couldn't find a full-time job that could cover rent and such. It started as a one-time kind of thing because a guy offered me €1,000 to have sex with him, and I was pretty desperate that I couldn't refuse. Word got around and I would get offers/requests almost on a daily basis. I could pick and choose my customers because I was young and attractive and I made at least $1,000 a week. On one side it was easy money, on the other side it was a dangerous world to be in with a lot of crazy people, drug use, etc., and at times customers would try to push me to do stuff I didn't agree to, so it was necessary for me to know how to protect myself. Overall it was a pretty good experience and got me through a financial and emotional tough time, and I was able to save up quite some money which paid for my university later on. I don't regret it at all, and I think that is because I got out at the right time. The longer you stay in that world, the harder it gets to leave it, and I've seen it gone bad as well for some guys. FYI, I live in Europe, in a country where prostitution is legal.
Let's just say you'd be surprised how many people out there just want to give a blowjob. Seriously. I feel it's gotta be fairly similar in comparison to females though. Sad lonely people or that don't want the whole experience of either dating or relationships, and just want sex.
I was a sugar baby once to a really rich wine-drinking white mom. She paid all of my beep. She would buy me presents all the time. It was a crazy ride until she got bored and tossed me aside.
5 years in the profession. I was a serial client of escorts. One particular female escort jokingly mentioned I would make a great male escort. The thought stewed for a few months, and I tried it. I see clients of all genders and identities. I'm pansexual. Certainly there are far more men seeking my services, but also couples looking to experiment. Rarely get solo female clients. I would say I don't face the same level of stigma that my female/trans/NB peers do. The stigma is still strong, but definitely not as negative or to the same extent.
I was a stripper. I was 18 and teetering in homelessness. Sometimes people would pay big money for extra services.
Young, dumb and homeless. Hard drugs were a deep hole for me. Dealer had a liking for me, traded sex for drugs. Got in too deep and everything escalated from there. Eventually it got to a point where he'd drug me up and sell me to his friends for a time.
Switch to my throwaway for this. I've been a prostitute on and off for about 12 years. I went to a really great school in Manhattan, lived on campus all 4 years, had a very magical experience, and graduated right in the onset of the 2008 economic crisis. It was a really tough time to find work, and I had a degree in the arts. I lived in an apartment owned by a family member, very conservative/old money neighborhood/building, that was vacant most of the year. I pretty much hit a brick wall as soon as I had to take care of myself, traumatic gay childhood coupled with never learning any real life skills. Also, having an arts degree didn't help. Managed to get a job as a personal assistant in the fashion industry, not related to my degree at all. Everyone in my family thought I was kicking ass, but the job was horrible and the boss abusive. I epically quit/got fired and didn't tell anyone for a while. Started posting ads on Craigslist. I was already using it to find hookups, so it was easy to switch over to dollar mode. Advertised myself as a massage therapist, wink, wink. I really did legitimately massage all the guys, unless they said no, but it always became at least a hand job. On several occasions, I blew the guy or he blew me. Always out calls, since I obviously didn't want to bring random dudes to my conservative building. Lots of hotels in Times Square, but really all over Manhattan, financial district to Upper West/Upper East, and sometimes Harlem. I would get high and answer ads all morning, go up to the roof and tan, then start drinking in the afternoon and go to whichever client I picked out at night. I don't think I ever did more than 2 in the same day. My rate was $150/hour. I made a couple grand a week, always immediately spent it on booze or weed or my student loans. Eventually my family member who owned the apartment told me I couldn't stay anymore, probably because the neighbors complained about weed, and I had to move. Ended up leaving Manhattan and moving back to my hometown and haven't really been back to New York since. For a number of years afterward, I would answer ads on Craigslist sporadically, until that got shut down, or get propositioned on Grindr and go get a blowjob for $100 or something. All in my hometown, not NY. It's been a number of years since I've turned a trick, but I would do it again if I needed/wanted to. I don't regret the work, but my 2-ish years hooking in New York were a wild time I wouldn't ever want to repeat. I can say without a doubt that my most sexually enlightening and sexually traumatic moments happened while I was a prostitute. Random episodes/thoughts in no consecutive order. BC, it's rather overwhelming/traumatic to think back on it all. Client hired me for a massage plus extra, started getting weepy halfway through, turned out his partner of decades had died months before and he missed human contact. We ended up spooning/dozing for hours while we talked, such a kind soul, only charged him for 1 hour. BC, I felt for him. German guy who just wanted us to sit really close, legs over each other, with our dicks together and sit there while he edged for like 3 hours. Paid my full rate and tipped me an extra hour, but I was so sore after from sitting in that position I had to take the next couple of days off. Very strange, secretive guy in a very nice building in Gramercy. I flubbed when I got to the front desk and gave my actual first name, kinda spaced out/drunk, and when they buzzed up, he was like, "Ooh, I don't know that person." Cue me going beep sorry, tell him this name, cringe, got upstairs and gave him a massage, We get to the hand job and he's about to come and he wrenches my hand away, tells me he has a condition and comes blood. I was like, excuse me. He was like, yeah, you should move back, I don't want to get any on you. I was fascinated, but he wouldn't let me see and turned nasty after. I left in such a daze. Horrible experience in a hotel right across from Penn Station. Guy was verbally abusive as soon as I walked in the door, told me I was fat, I kind of am now, but wasn't then, at all, and had me strip, then sucker punched me in the mouth out of nowhere soon as I had my clothes off. I immediately socked him back in the eye, and while he kinda flailed around, I grabbed my clothes and got dressed in the hall. Always wondered if anyone saw that security camera footage. Left with no money and a swollen lip, that was one of, if not my last trick, at it, in New York. Cried a lot afterward. Very fat guy who only wanted to rub his dick around on my feet, then tipped me $200 on top of the rate after. Dude who wanted to blow me on his couch, but only if I was sitting on this one particular cushion. I was pretty buzzed and horny, so I just kinda said yes, realized after that he probably had a hidden camera pointed at that spot and I felt like a dope. Have always wondered if that footage is out there somewhere, lol. Very rich guy in the village who was furious when I showed up and really was only going to give him a massage and jerk him off. He wanted everything, told him he wasn't gonna get it. He spends the whole hour trying every trick in the book to convince me, gets me loaded, gives me weed, tells me he's best friends with Sarah Jessica Parker, shows me pictures of them together. Finally the hour rolled around and I was like, alright dude, if you want me to stay, it's gonna be another $150. He grabs me by the chin and says I'm the worst whore he's ever met. I was like, cool, give me my $150, I didn't even have to touch your dick, lol. A former Catholic priest who gave me one of the best blowjobs of my life, but also couldn't stop talking about Catholicism. I was raised Catholic and he was way into it. Asian dude who asked me 10,000 times, before, during, and after, if I was a cop. You'd think after he jizzed in my hand that he'd realize I wasn't. I would lie a lot about my age, say I was a freshman and 18, got a lot of hot guys that way who I would have hooked up with for free, including one who paid $500 a session just to blow me. One session the guy asked me to have dinner with him some other time, he was interested in being my sugar daddy. I was like, alright, thinking he couldn't possibly afford me, but hey, a free meal. Turns out dude was in a gang/mob situation, not going to say what country of origin, took me to a Brazilian restaurant where they slice meat onto your plate, spent a fortune, but he was terrified to be seen with me, big, kinda muscle fat guy. We got in his car and drove around Midtown after. He pulled over and tried to get me to blow him in his car and I was like, nah, we're in public. He was furious, threw money at me and made me get out. Couple years later, after I left New York, I read an article about some shootout. Dude was one of the victims, very glad that never worked out. And like too many more. So many hours spent sifting through replies to my ads. Craigslist was a great place to operate from, but also annoying, because you'd have to reword your ad if you wanted to post it twice in a day. Also I should mention that there were like dozens of cases a week, it seemed, of people getting beaten up/raped/killed through Craigslist and other sites/apps. The Long Island Craigslist killer was running around then, though his victims were women, and I often was very aware of how dangerous the work was and how many risks I was taking. But aside from the stranger clients, the one guy who punched me, I got through it all right. That's all I got. If you want to know more, ask. Pretty fun/weird to type it all out. I will say my regular sex life has had equally crazy stories, maybe I'll share those someday. If you know a sex worker, go tell them you love them. I helped a lot of guys unwind and feel comfortable in their skin and I'm proud of that work in particular.
I lived in Vegas and I was in really good shape at the time. So people bought me nice clothes and I accompanied them for the weekend or whatever their time frame was. Lots of men, few older women. It seems there was a lot less stigma to the job.
The difference is only guys want to pay me for sex. Women get paid by the opposite sex. Which I have done too, but far more rare.
7 years clean. Have my own family now. Still get night terrors and slight PTSD though.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.